Welcome to the She Suite Society, a community where women from all backgrounds come together to share their stories, support one another, and reveal the unfiltered reality of our lives. I'm your host and empowerment Sherpa, Dahlia, and this podcast exists to give voice and space to women whose experiences might otherwise go unheard. Today, I'm joined by Lynn Harris, founder of Gold Comedy and co-creator of the internet sensation Breakup Girl. Lynn's journey from accomplished journalist to stand-up comedian to comedy educator spans 25 years of using humor as a mechanism for driving social change. What makes her stories so compelling is how she's consistently found ways to address difficult topics through the power of appropriately humorous voices. Lynn's understanding that comedy is revolutionary when performed by anyone who isn't a straight white dude speaks to something deeper about who gets heard in our society. As she puts it, when you make people laugh, you make people listen. And that 10 minutes on stage where everyone has to be quiet and listen to you can be transformative, regardless of what you're talking about. Through Gold Comedy, she's created something remarkable, an online platform that teaches not just the craft of comedy, but how to run your comedy life like a business. From stand-up and sketch writing to her premium Build a Pitch Any Idea class, Lynn is helping women of all backgrounds, and not just women, but anybody invested in comedy, bring their passionate projects to life, proving that it's never too late to pursue what you can't get out of your heart.
I have always been a huge fan, and I don't think I can express this enough. Huge fan of comedy. Huge fan of comedy.
I've come to your place.
Yes, you have. When I saw that you have a comedy club and you do skits, I looked at all your skits. Holy cannolis. I just adore them.
Thanks.
I have so many questions.
Thanks. Good. The one thing I'll say is we don't have a club like with bricks and mortar.
Right.
But yeah, we do call it the club, which you have rightly noted. So yes.
Tell me, how did you get started in comedy?
How did I get started in comedy? Very sort of unintentionally. I did not have a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan. When I started to do stand-up, which I'll back up in a second, my goal with doing stand-up was to do stand-up. That was it. I just really wanted to do stand-up. I thought it looked like fun, and I thought I might be good at it, and I liked hanging out with other funny people. I was not ambitious.
But still, that is ambition in itself.
Well, fair enough. It did come from, I think it came out of simply being exposed to a lot of hilarity when I was growing up, in contrast to having sort of like a quiet house with an only child in it, who is me. If there was something on, it was either opera or my dad playing the piano, or Carol Burnett, I Love Lucy, The Muppets, Monty Python, Laugh-In. And that's just what both my parents were funny. My dad was more of a ham, but they were both funny. And it's just what I was exposed to, and I loved it. And so I was just always drawn to, I was a theater nerd, but I played the funny sidekick. I did a cappella in college, but I was never a great singer, but I was good at the funny stuff we did in between, so that was just what I was always drawn to. And then, after college, I was like, I'll do stand up. And then I did it for about 10 years. But even though I was kind of lackadaisical about my intentions, or like my goal planning, I was very intentional about and committed to the idea of comedy as a mechanism for driving social change.
Oh, that's a good twist. I love this.
Yeah. So whether or not you're taking a difficult topic and making it more inviting, or whether it's just the people who are doing the comedy. In other words, if you are, it's pretty revolutionary if you think about it. If you're not a straight white dude and you do stand up, let's say, I'm involved in and can talk about all kinds of comedy that are not stand up, but just to take a simple example, if you're not a straight white dude and you're doing stand up in a club where most of the other people are straight white dudes, and you're talking about whatever it is you're talking about, could be your life, might not be, might be nothing either, controversial, political, or in any way, quote unquote important, right? It might be silliness, but just the fact that you are, with your face and your life and your experiences, standing on stage for 8 to 10 minutes where all the other people have to be quiet or laugh, of course, and listen to you, and you're not someone they're used to listening to, that's revolutionary in and of itself.
It really is.
And I include women in that. Yeah. So stand up also, if you think about it, when women do stand up, you have to listen to us for 10 minutes. So I like to say, when you make people laugh, you make people listen. And that is very true. And again, can be revolutionary when, depending on who it is, that's both inviting the laughter and who then has to listen.
Exactly. That's exactly right. What's funny is, for most people that I know, that would be so intimidating. They're so scared of being heard or seen, and definitely not on stage. It's on stage with a spotlight. And that's like way worse. And you turn it into being an empowering moment, which is exactly right. They have to listen to the words that you say. Do you ever get heckled as a result?
I haven't done, I don't do stand up now. It's just, I can't stay up that late. Heckling is I don't want to diminish it, but it's a bit of a red herring. I really don't want to diminish it, because it does happen and it's a pain in the ass. But it's, you're making yourself vulnerable no matter what, even with a rapt audience. And hecklers typically are like, no one's really on their side.
Yeah,
it's still kind of your game, and it's a pain in the ass, and you have to do something about it, and you have to practice, and you have to learn how to respond. And yes, it's totally a thing. But I think comics are more, and I'm going to put a spin on this after I say it, comics are more concerned with, and again, hear me out, because I'm going to put a spin on this. Comics are more concerned, typically, there are exceptions, with bombing than they are with being heckled. It's just an outlier, and and again, it makes the other person look bad, less you, right? But even then, comics know, even though nobody likes to bomb, comics know that if they're not bombing, they're not doing comedy. And it's, it sucks, but it happens. And the especially with stand-up, the thing about stand-up is that you're also, if you're not working several nights a week, or at least at mics or whatever, on stage several nights a week, you're also not really you're not growing as a stand-up. So it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. So they just know that numerically, not all nights will be like tonight, and you just dust yourself off and move on. So that's a more likely scenario, where, especially because with a heckler, you kind of have something to deal with and play off of and sort of neutralize. Whereas if they're just not with you, that's almost the enemy is invisible, and it's a little harder to deal with. But even then, it's just part of the job.
I didn't even think about that. Numerically, it's going to happen.
It's impossible not to. It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, it doesn't mean anything, but it probably still can't feel great.
Yeah, we're not made of wood, right? But it doesn't mean anything.
So you did that for 10 years after college.
Mm-hmm.
And then what did you do?
Well, I did a lot of overlapping and kind of intertwined things. I was a journalist for about 25 years. I was very accomplished as a journalist. And I still do related things, and still use the skills. I just kind of pivoted away from it when sort of in the early 2000s, the mid 2000s, when there was a great reckoning among magazines and newspapers, and a great shedding of those of us who had very contracts that made the job doable. But during that time, I was doing both journalism and stand-up, and the same thing was really driving me at the core, which was, this wasn't what I did with every single thing I wrote or performed, but the idea, what interested me the most was, how can I use an appropriately humorous voice to address, or when addressing, difficult issues, abortion, racial justice, things that are just not funny. But how can one's voice contribute? How can again, appropriately humorous voice, whether it's sarcastic, whether it's innocent, whatever it is, bring more people into the conversation, or skewer something even harder. So I also, at the time, during that chunk of time, during that era, co-created a comic book style character with my writing partner, with my creative partner, named Breakup Girl, whose job it was and is to help all kinds of people, every kind of person, with romantic emergencies. And even that became actually one of the earliest multi-platform internet success stories. That was in '99, and it turned into 2 books, a long-running variety show live, an animated interstitial show on part of another show on Oxygen, all from this, this originally an good old-fashioned book that we collaborated on to help you survive, about surviving a breakup.
Yeah.
And even then, like, we didn't take, we took it very seriously, but and it did have a mission that was, again, the kind of the intertwining of, humor in some form with serious goals. And that was, we didn't initially conceive her this way, but it really grew into, and I think one of the reasons people loved it, what it really grew into was a way to talk about relationships that wasn't the same old dumb gendered stuff, where women talked about relationships and complained about men, which helps no one. But and it's not even, that's not to shame the women doing that. I'm saying that's the way these things were viewed, right? Advice columns were for women. Conversations about relationships are for women, where they talk about how to fix men. Like that was the idea. I'm not saying that was the reality, but that was the idea.
Yeah.
That helps nobody, right? Especially if you're not in a straight relationship. So we really early. I mean, this was the '90s. We had an advice column, and people would write to us, young, old, gay, straight, trans, everything, and ask for advice, because a comic superhero was, she was funny, but she wasn't silly, and was accessible. And so we really, we didn't wake up every day thinking this, but we knew that what we were doing was trying to change the way people talked and thought about relationships.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's another example. So we did that so that was all like intertwined with the journalism and comedy. And there were, a couple other things after that, but I'll pause.
That's magical. That actually is where I think the magic happens, is when you can talk about things that are so difficult with humor. I think you're right. It does sit with people a lot longer, and I think it breaks barriers, truly. Especially when you can laugh with one another.
Yeah, it's really true. There's a whole bunch of reasons that it does that, that are like, it's science, basically, but it's true.
Were you always into comedy or comedic things, even as a child?
Yeah, I was kind of a goofball. I definitely was a goofball. I took after my dad, who was like sort of a non-annoying practical joker, and was silly. I mean, he was into Monty Python, and that was his jam. We would do goofy slapstick together. Like when he was raking the leaves, I would hide in the pile and then like jump out and scare my mom, like that kind of thing. Yeah, I just always dug it. It was just always my language, and just what I gravitated toward. But then, it's true that even beyond that, it takes practice.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like practice, practice, practice. You could have a natural affinity. You could, you could not be, you could be comfortable on stage, whatever it is. But that is all very nice. But
Yeah.
you can't kind of seal the deal without a lot of work and practice.
Yeah. It's like any muscle.
Yes.
So you started Gold Comedy Club.
Mhm.
Did you do that by yourself?
I have a co-founder named Amivora, and initially I started out by myself with just kind of experimenting and figuring out what I wanted to do, and then Ami came on as it was really turning into a business that needed marketing officer, digital officer. She's that's her area, and we have still do have a huge team of advisors. I knew how to do a lot of things. I knew how to build a brand. I knew how to teach comedy. I knew how to be a producer. I had done all those things, and I needed and sought out help with, okay, but how do I legit grow a business or create, at least launch even a business? So definitely anything I did alone, I didn't really do alone.
I mean, that can be said for anybody, right? We never really do things alone.
Right.
I just wondered how much support and help you had with that. So that's pretty interesting.
A ton.
And when did you start it?
I started thinking about it almost 10 years ago, just kind of thinking about it. Like, what would it be like? What would it be like if, I don't know, something with women and comedy, and there's content, but there's also classes, and we get them young, or I didn't know. And then I started doing a few things just to experiment and build the brand before the pandemic. And then I always knew, though, that I wanted the headquarters, if you will, to be online, because for reach and scale.
Yeah.
And then the pandemic happened, and we could have done without it, but given that it did, it helped people understand that, yeah, you can do pretty much anything. You can learn online. You can form communities online. You can do comedy online. Like it's not a substitute for something else, but it's legit. Even improv. We have an improv teacher who does a great job not working against the Zoom square, but with the fact that you're in a Zoom. And same with our stand-up. Like we really work with it. Like you can do a whole lot of things with, like, props are not funny in a club. Props can be hilarious on Zoom, because you don't know what's sitting outside that, and then suddenly someo's like, like,
Yeah,
that wasn't funny, but
right.
it's just different. And so you learn to work with that. You can learn to work with that medium. So in other words, we no longer had to educate people that you could do this, whatever this was, on your computer.
Nice.
Yeah. So we've been growing it sort of slowly, but surely, since the middle of the pandemic.
Where did the name come from?
Well, I like the idea. I mean, comedy gold is like the best comedy, right? And I like the idea of turning it on its head. And comedy is hard for everybody. Comedy is hard for the straightest, whitest, dudest dude. I wanted to make it easier for and prioritize the people for whom it's the hardest. So there's something about that made me want to switch it around and not call it comedy gold, but gold comedy. And just to sort of turn things upside down a little bit.
Play on words.
Yeah.
Of course, you're not to journalism. You'll never not be a journalist. Is that a fair statement? You'll never not be that. What were some of the more difficult hurdles you had to do when balancing the two, when you were doing comedy and journalism?
Honestly, it wasn't that hard. It wasn't that hard because sometimes what I was writing about during the day gave me ideas for stand-up, especially in my later years. When I was fortunate enough to be able to write a lot of personal essays, I wrote them for books, also for anthologies. I found that it certainly wasn't, you couldn't do the exact same thing on stage, but I gravitated a little bit more toward, I did storytelling also. That's a little bit different, but I gravitated more toward, like, let's say I had a 10 or 12 minute set. I gravitated more toward like talking about one thing for those 12 minutes. So it's not, it's not full on storytelling, but doing stand-up style storytelling or storytelling stand-up style. So, telling the one story of a crazy camping trip to Idaho it was just like jokes, but it was still one story with a beginning, middle, and an end. And that would often be derived from something that I had just written for a magazine or an anthology or something. So there was a lot of translation, or even like, current issues that I was writing about. I would take the same jokes, the same dark skewering jokes or whatever that I had written in, for Salon or whatever it was, and often find ways to translate them into they would mostly be the same, but you'd have to change them around a little bit to work live. So there was a lot. The border was pretty porous.
You're a very creative individual. I would assume that you've, like a lot of people, well, not a lot of people, but you've just sort of followed your own life path and done what felt right to you.
That I have.
How did you not succumb to these pressures?
That's a great question. I mean, I did have a job for a while, which I also liked, which was also great fun, and I learned a lot, but only for about 5 years. So it doesn't mean that what I have been doing is not a business. I mean, any journalist / creative is running their own business. I say that not to sound defensive, but but we do. One of the things we've taught and teach at Gold is, you're sure you're a creative, but you're running a business, and here's how to run that. Here's how to do your invoicing, and here's how to ask for as much money as you deserve, and here's how to, just because you're a creative doesn't mean you should get paid less because you're following your dream.
I love that.
That's a whole lot of yes right there. But so
wait, what are all the avenues that you teach at Gold?
Oh, sure. Well, we teach all the kind of obvious forms of comedy. So stand-up, sketch, primarily stand-up and sketch, but we do storytelling. We do improv. We do, what am I forgetting? Stand-up, storytelling. Those are the big sort of, TV writing, late night writing, pilot writing. We also find that we fill other gaps that need to be filled, whether it's how to run your life how to run your comedy life like a business, but also we teach how to, not just how to write a sketch, but how to shoot it, so that if you're doing a digital sketch, how to shoot it so it looks great, all of the production piece, how to shoot it, how to edit it, and how to market it online. Because you don't want to just write a great sketch and then not be able to do it. You want to get it out there. How to direct a sketch, how to write dialogue, all those things. And again, light, sound, all those things that have to be impeccable, which you can do on a budget, how to do that on a budget. And we also teach one of our premium classes that I think also is one that might be especially interesting to your listeners is it's a premium class called Build and Pitch Any Idea. And there are a lot of great pitching classes out there, and this does help you create a great pitch, but you don't get to do your pitch until you've fully developed your idea. Typically in this class, it's typically, but not always, it's people who are working on ideas for TV shows, usually half hour or hour, comedies or dramedies. But also people work on feature films, podcasts, unscripted, and even some other outliers. And what's amazing, two amazing things. Well, there's many amazing things, but I'll select two for now. One is that people can come in to this class with just the seed of an idea. Just the seed. Might be everyone in my family is a dentist. There's got to be a show in there somewhere.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Or they come in with like, I've written the pilot, I've outlined it, I know the arc of season 2, I know everything, but I don't know what to do. Like, it's sitting here, I don't know what to do with it. And from any starting point, Ryan Cunningham who was the teacher, who is no big deal, executive producer, Broad City, Search Party, Inside Amy Schumer.
Yeah.
And she helps you take from wherever you are and build and rigorously go through a framework where you build that idea until you can live it, and until you're living and breathing it. And then you can start working on your industry standard pitch that by the end of the class, you have polished and practiced and delivered to development executives who are not in that moment expected or at all expected to like greenlight you. They can't. But in many cases they do say, like, do you mind if I make some calls? So it's not official like that, but they do give real feedback from the exact kind of people that you would be pitching to. The other amazing thing is that, or just, it's not amazing, it's wonderful, is that in this class especially, the people who take it are not uniquely this, but like this is where they show up. And that is women in their like 40s, 50s plus, who are, already successful in a career that may be entertainment related, may not. One of them taking it right now is a veterinary oncology surgeon, for example. And they have an idea that they cannot get out of their head, off their mind, out of their heart, out of their drawer. And they're like, I'm doing this. And I just scared my cat. And they are passionate and driven, and they're serious. Like, they may not be quitting their day job on Wall Street or in Hollywood or whatever it is, or just, or elementary school teacher, whatever it is. But they're very serious about this project. It's not like a random, I'll give it a whirl. Like, they are serious. And so they do come out of this class with a ready to go pitch. And they often go on to, I can think of several off the top of my head, who have gone on to get their shows into development, with actors attached. And, the whole thing takes forever, but, or they've produced it, they've turned it into an entire existing web series that's out right now, like Ratzar, which I can direct you to right now. So they, and Ryan, the instructor, used to develop the class as a college class, and no shade. She said, she says, I love the college students. They're great. They're so full of energy. They're so creative. They're so interesting. They're so original. She's like, but I really loved the women, the quote unquote older women, who just bring so much life to their ideas, even if they're not autobiographical. And so we really have sent some really interesting projects into the world that have come out of women from this kind of, psychographic, if you will. So
powerful movement. That's almost a movement.
Yeah,
that's
cool.
Amazing. Yeah. Look at you, just killing it, just helping the world get better. I know we're going to end up running out of time. It always happens, but I have two more questions. One of which is, what does your day-to-day look like? Like, you wake up the day, what does the normal average day look like? I imagine it's not normal.
I normally sit in this perfect white office where there's no dust or clutter. And I have ideas. And no, that's not what happens. If only you can see what's right around us. Listeners, I'm referring to my completely fictional Google Meet background that is, it's perfectly white with perfectly happy plants. Day to day, honestly, I'm mostly focused on, I'm talking to my team and mostly focused on, which class do we have to build? What projects are our members doing that we need to support? What events are going on this week? Which comedy pro or celebrity do we have booked for our weekly Q&A? It's very day-to-dayness, right? And I will say, as it's also the classic thing that founders find out when they build a business based on their passion, that they're like, oh, wait, when do I get to do my passion? So partly it's me trying to also find time to still make funny stuff. Cause I'm here all day helping other people make funny stuff, which is fun. And they succeed. I didn't even say we have a web series now on Fox Soul. We're making funny stuff and it's getting out into the world. But and you saw all our digital sketches that are amazing. But then there's still that itch, which is why I'm here in the first place. So it's a combination of just do, execute, and then a little yearning.
Oh, that's too good. Oh, I love that. Well, as every episode typically goes here, the entire episode ends up being advice, but I like to end it with, what advice can you give to the listeners on the She Sweet Society? Whether you live by it or just something you think they need to hear right now.
If you're drawn to or curious about comedy in all its forms, humor, and then the minute you feel drawn to it, and then the next thought you think is, but I'm not funny, or I'm not funny enough, or I'm too shy, or I'm not confident enough, or whatever it is, to do whatever. I'm not saying you all have to run off and join the circus. But I will say that you actually don't have to change who you are in order to welcome comedy and humor even more into your life. You don't have to be less shy. You don't have to be more confident. You just have to kind of keep an ear out. And if something's funny to you, or something isn't funny yet but could be, write it down. There's all this talk about a gratitude journal. I like to keep, my joke is I call it an attitude journal. But just write down anything that either is funny or could be funny, or you don't even know. It's just a thing, something that occurs to you. Just, whether it's peanut butter, who knows? And whether or not you decide that you're going to give it a whirl and try a stand-up class, or learn to pitch your idea that you've been working on. It still is a way to help you notice that you're noticing that there's some stuff that's kind of funny around you. And laughter, they say it's the best medicine, which sure, it's, tied with the COVID vaccine, which I guess we can't get anymore, but okay. But it's actually not as passive. It is that it's a distraction. We all need it. Yes. But it's also really an active. It's not just a distraction from what's going on. It's a way of engaging with what's going on.
Yeah.
It's a way of connecting. It actually builds trust, all these things that you wouldn't expect. So I just invite your listeners to, it doesn't matter who you are, what you're like, whatever you are already is what makes you funny. So to just invite that, just to put that lens on and invite that kind of just vision into your life, and you won't, whether or not you actually try writing or performing comedy, you will not regret it.
Oh, that's so great. And I am thrilled. I am very thrilled. I don't know. Most people don't know this about me, because unless you're very close, then I have a deal with myself that no matter what, by the time I hit 50, I'm doing stand-up. It's just no matter what, by the time I hit 50. And it's a promise I've made to myself 10 years ago. And I am definitely signing up for your school.
You have the nicest
now, though. I'm not gonna.
Well, listen, if you and your listeners, and this includes you, because you listen, I'm sure. If you are, if you sign up for a gold membership, and PS, when you join as a member for a year, and that means all your classes that are in the club are included, which is huge. So you can try everything.
Yeah.
And it's all for the price of 1.5 classes somewhere else. Or if you are interested in our premium pitch class, either way, tell me, DM me on Instagram at Lynn Harris or Gold Comedy. Tell me you heard about me on Dahlia's podcast, and or our Dahlia, and I will, and I can hook you up with a 10% discount.
That is amazing.
There you go.
Oh, so amazing. Thank you.
What moves me most about Lynn's story is her commitment to making comedy accessible to everyone. Regardless of confidence level or natural ability, Her reminder that you don't have to change who you are in order to welcome comedy and humor into your life challenges the myth that you need to be a certain type of person to be funny. I'm particularly inspired by her students, women who come to her Build a Pitch Any Idea class with projects they can't get out of their hearts or drawers. The fact that several have gone on to get their shows in development or produce their own web series proves that passion combined with the right framework can lead to extraordinary outcomes. Lynn's concept of keeping an attitude journal instead of just a gratitude journal resonates deeply. Writing down things that are funny or could be funny trains us to notice humor in our daily lives. And as she points out, laughter isn't just a distraction from what's happening, it's a way of engaging with what's happening. For those of you drawn to comedy but held back by thoughts of not being funny enough or confident enough, Lynn's wisdom offers permission to start exactly where you are. Your unique perspective and experiences are what make you funny, not some predetermined set of traits. If today's conversation inspired you to consider welcoming more humor into your life, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Remember, the She Suite Society exists to amplify women's voices from all walks of life, proving that every story, even the funny ones, has the power to create change. Until next time, this is your host, Dahlia, reminding you that your life is your message to the world. Why not make it extraordinary?